freedom is not free. Discover what it takes. It's time to tap and move forward.
Hello and welcome to Tap and Move Forward. I'm your host, Lynn Shelley. I'm happy to introduce you to Bradley Driver, a career Marine who has served over 20 years and has had diverse career experience, including as a crew chief, a drill instructor, and now as a sergeant major. He has met multiple presidents, deployed all over the world, and in all of his experience, I was impressed to discover a humble man who truly wants to serve, support, and give back. He truly believes he is the luckiest man you will meet today. For my Warrior Challenge, Bradley speaks of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and that it is uncommon that an American has actually read both documents. I challenge you to read them, and stay tuned until the end of the interview for Bradley's challenge to you. Now the interview with Bradley Driver. Why did you join the military and how old were you?
I joined the Marine Corps at the age of 17, so this was 1996, and I met my recruiter. Happenstance, he walked into my place of employment. I was working at a gas station, and he walks in and says, "You look like a military member.
Really?
Are you in, or have you thought about ever joining the military?" And I said, "I've thought about joining the Marine Corps." I was the first the first person he ever met as a Marine recruiter. And I just watched that Marine retire March 29th after 32 years on active duty.
Wow.
And he's had a huge impact on my entire career.
Do you think it was a tactic, or do you think he legitimately saw something in you?
I don't know. I'm thankful that he did. I had thought about it. I was at that time I was a sophomore, finishing my sophomore year in high school, or at the end of my summertime. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I couldn't do anything until I was a junior in high school. So he let me come work out with him for a year, and then I swore in and been a Marine ever since.
You say that you considered being a Marine. Why did you know that you wanted to be a Marine over the other branches?
I did not. I'm the only Marine in the family. My grandfather was Army. In-laws and cousins and things like that were all Army. I just thought the Marine Corps was, based on the commercials and based on the knowledge, that the Marines were the best. So one good thing that then Sergeant Dillard did was he took me to every recruiter, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard, and said, "Talk to them. This guy's Brad. What do you have for him?" And I went and talked to all of them, and I appreciated the camaraderie of that office, and I appreciated the workouts from that I was put through in that office, and I appreciated his diligence and attitude, and just I was drawn to that Marine, and I wanted to be like that.
It sounds like they started they physically challenged you right from the beginning.
Sure. So I was at the time, played football in high school and was on a wrestling team in high school. I considered myself fit then, but looking back at myself compared to now, I was nowhere near as fit as I am today. The Marine Corps, we do our best to have weekly physical training with our poolies, and a poolie for us is a pool of applicants who are going to go to recruit training. So every week we get them together. At a minimum every month we get them together to do some type of activity, whether it's physical training or a hike or classes or just team building of some sort, getting them prepared for the physical, mental, and emotional rigors of recruit training, along with learning all the good things that is our culture.
So right now you are leadership over a recruiting unit.
So I am the Sergeant Major of the recruiting command for Marine Corps Recruiting Station Salt Lake City. We are part of 8th Marine Corps District, which covers most of the Midwest, and I currently have most of Nevada, Utah, Idaho, part of Wyoming, Oregon, a little bit of Arizona. So I have quite a large area.
Wow.
I say we're a little bit of peanut butter on a whole lot of bread because it's sparsely populated in areas, but beautiful area out here, beautiful opportunity out here. We have currently 49 sector recruiters, so individual recruiters in that area. I have 11 stations and then 10 substations outside of those, scattered across that whole area. But I manage the Marines. I manage the team here, the headquarters team that does part of that. So other services would call me the command sergeant major in the Army, or I would be the chief master sergeant in the Air Force, something like that. So I'm the senior enlisted advisor to the commander, who is a major.
This is for active duty?
Correct. We do active and reservists and officers. So we recruit everybody in this region. So anyone interested in joining the Marine Corps in this region will come through their name, or something will come through my computer system or across my desk at some point.
So as far as active duty Marines go, is this the only place, or being a recruiter is the only option? Because do we have bases? I don't even know.
That's okay. We have no Marine bases here. There are 4 reserve units within our area.
Yeah, I heard that there were some reserve units.
So the reserve units are here, and there's infantry and light armored reconnaissance and tanks. Those are the 3 type of Marine units, reserve units we have here. So if you came to me today and said, I'd like to join the Marine Corps, first step is I'm going to sit down and do an interview and find out why you want to be a Marine. And then I'm going to explain to you how the Marine Corps can help you achieve those goals. Then the next step is to take you to Military Interesting Processing Station, MEPS, to do your physical, medical, and mental tests, so your ASVAB tests, which is the military version of the SAT. If you pass the medical, physical, and you score high enough on the ASVAB test, then I say, all right, you qualify to be a Marine. Now depending on where your scores were, we can offer you a job potentially of something that might interest you.
So fairly similar to any branch.
Any branch. We're all doing the very same thing. So
yeah.
Some of the misconceptions are physical. Like, I ask this every time I go to a high school group. I say, how many pull-ups do you have to do a Marine? And the class raise their hands, and it's 50 or 20 or some ridiculous number, and it's really just 3. As a male, you have to do only 3 pull-ups, and females do 1. You have to be able to do 44 crunches in 2 minutes and run 1.5 miles for males in 13 minutes and 30 seconds, and females 15 minutes. If you can meet those basic requirements physically, and pass the medical physical and pass the ASVAB test, then you meet the basic requirements to be a Marine.
Do you have to be able to pass that physical test before you go in?
Before you go to boot camp, yes.
Oh, okay.
But you can join today in what's called the Delayed Entry Program, the DEP, we refer to it as, and you can spend up to a year in the Delayed Entry Program. So like I did, I joined as a rising senior over the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. I joined as a rising senior. So for the next year, I was in the Delayed Entry Program, meaning I went to workouts with the recruiting office. I met other poolees. I went to various functions every month or every week. And during that time, I was, again, getting that mental and physical preparation to go to recruit training and be more successful when I got there.
Is then the Delayed Entry Program something you opt into? Or is it only for age?
So it doesn't matter. Everybody will enter the Delayed Entry Program, whether it's for 3 days or for a year. So everybody's going to go into the Delayed Entry Program for some amount of time.
Oh, okay.
If it's less than 30 days, that's not ideal, because if I only know you for 2 or 3 weeks, then you're not prepared to go to boot camp.
So what kind of preparation do you think is most important for the people off the street?
Today, our young folks, I think resiliency is lacking the most. An ability to let go of their technology.
Yeah.
I talk about this, and it's really odd for me because I didn't have a cell phone until I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps at 6 years or 7 years or something at that time. So letting go of your technology and not having constant feed of information or constant source of communication, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. Overcoming adversity, because my perception is that most young people are let off too easy. They are not held to a standard. Their teachers allow them to turn in homework late and still make a grade. Their administrators and school officials don't hold them to a specific standard, and they are allowed to call mom and dad and mom and dad yell at somebody and somebody lets it go. And that doesn't fly in this business. So overcoming adversity and overcoming boredom and overcoming like living inside your own head for a little while is a very difficult thing for most young folks. So
Yeah, mom and dad don't come to basic training.
there's nobody to bail you out. You are on your own, and that's one of the biggest challenges that I think that young folks face today. So,
Are there things that you're doing in your program to specifically target those issues?
it's a discussion point at every gathering. For example, I had a group 2 weekends ago on a Saturday. I've specifically made them leave their phones in their vehicles, and for the next 2 hours we did classes or did practice drill or did some physical training and had discussions and all the other things. And towards the end of the discussion, I asked the question, I said, how many of you during the course of the last 2 hours have wondered how many text messages have I had, how many Instagram likes have I had, how many Facebook things have I had? And every hand went up. And I said, you need to truly get that out of your brain, and because you're not going to have it for you can't have that stuff in recruit training. So what are you going to be focused on there? If you're focused on getting a text message or getting a like or getting a ding on some of your a dopamine response, I guess is what I call it, when you have the notification show up.
Right.
Because in Afghanistan, I didn't have that, and I needed to be completely focused on my mission. In Iraq,
Right.
I didn't have that. I needed to be completely focused on my mission. In any deployment, I've not had that. Needed to be completely focused on my mission. That is the reason why we have the deprivation. So you're taken away from that. I need to know that you can pay attention and focus on the task at hand, and not be looking towards the technology to soothe your desires.
It's a really good point that you're bringing up, because really, if you think about it, it's like how much time is wasted on something that's really meaningless versus engaging in something
Yes.
that means something.
Absolutely. I have noticed on so many occasions that our young folks, and even my Marines, have the same issue. They have difficulty talking face to face with someone. Communication is a lost art, a dying art, if you will. Vocal communication.
I heard that there was a study that they did where they tried to get strangers, they were teenagers, but they were strangers, to sit down face to face and talk to each other, and they didn't really have anything to say, but then they had them sit back to back and text each other, and all of a sudden they had
Amazing.
so much to say.
Amazing.
Amazing and yet disturbing.
Concur, all at the same time. I say amazingly, joking. I was having a conversation yesterday with a Marine who has difficulty with small talk.
Uh-huh.
And he asked me, he said, what do you do for small talk? Because you seem to just chat with everybody. And I said, I learned it many years ago because I forced myself to. Because I knew I was rising in the ranks of the military, and I knew that I needed to be able to have discussions, and I was expected to make speeches and do whatever else. So I had to overcome adversity in myself to be comfortable with it. So I learned a technique many years ago. I don't ask people, what do you do? I think that's a very old and antiquated and boring question. I ask people two things. I say, who are you? And inevitably I always get asked back, what do you mean? I say, however you want to take it. Who are you? Tell me who you are. And then an alternate question, or probably a better question, is, do you have any pets?
That'll get people talking for sure.
Because people love to talk about pets.
Yeah.
And if they don't have pets, they will talk about past pets or pets that they want in the future. And that conversation will be endless. And that's a wonderful way to spark a conversation if you are not good at small talk.
I think it's a really good point what you're saying too. I've heard other people who have reached higher ranks talk about the importance of communication and people skills. So not just being able to communicate effectively about the mission,
Sure.
but being able to communicate well with a given person.
Sure. I think one of the questions you might ask me is, what do I look for in a leader? For me personally, it is, does this person genuinely care about my welfare? And they don't need to be charismatic. They don't need to be have all the awards or ribbons. They don't need to stand 10 feet tall and be bulletproof. I just need to know that that person genuinely cares about me. So in my daily interactions with Marines, my goal is to make them understand that I truly care about them as an individual. The mission's going to happen. The task at hand is going to happen. The families are going to be okay as long as that Marine is taken care of.
I'd have to agree with you 100% that people are willing to do quite a bit under the leadership of somebody if they know that that person cares about their best welfare. That's all that they really care about.
It's genuine concern for someone's well-being. I think that's the most important thing to me, and I try my best to show that every day.
I'm guessing that that's something that you realized from your own experience and watching other leaders versus somebody just telling you.
I am a big believer that we all adapt and change and grow as humans and grow as individuals and grow in our profession, and particularly in the military, you grow with every rank and you're expected to know or do something different or better or have an understanding of. I thought many years ago, because people will always ask you, the junior Marines would always ask the next level up, what's your most important, what's the leadership quality that you find most important, or leadership trait? So the Marine Corps has 14 leadership traits that we say, and the acronym is JJ, did, tie, buckle. Judgment, justice, decisiveness, initiative, dependability, tact, enthusiasm, bearing, unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, and enthusiasm. So that's our leadership traits. So people would inevitably ask you, what's the most important leadership trait to you? And after years of answering that question or thinking about it, you come to develop your own leadership style and leadership desires. And I would always ask a Marine, and I ask myself more so than anybody else, is if I had to lead myself, what qualities do I possess that are attractive to me, and what things do I do that are not attractive to me? So if I were one of my own subordinates, what would I find good and bad about me? Self-assessment.
Great questions.
Yeah. And I've asked Marines that many times over when I was looking for, because we do promotion boards, meaning I have to make a recommendation to the commander for a Marine to be promoted to the next higher grade, particularly at the junior ranks. So I'd sit the Marines down and I said, if you had to be led by you, what qualities do you possess? Qualities and traits do you possess that are attractive to you personally? Like, what do you want in a leader? What kind of thing?
It's a great question, and it's a great question for a board as well.
Yeah.
I love it. Did you deploy in your...
Many times.
Many times.
So many services look at it as we got on a plane or got on a ship and we went away for 6 months and came back, after 6 months, 7 months, or 8 months, or a year of deployment. There's been odd times for me because I was considered in a deployed state, but would leave. I was stationed in Japan, Okinawa, so we would leave on a Marine Expeditionary Unit for 2 or 3 months and come back for a week or two, and then go back out again for another month, and then come back for 2 months. So it was a very odd time. So we were considered deployed for the whole time, but we were still on U.S. soil, technically as a base for some of that. But I have been deployed probably 8 years total of my 22 years in.
Wow.
And some of that's on a ship, some of that's in bad guy country, some of that's on foreign soil training with foreign militaries, some of that's on, I've done everything. So I've been fortunate enough to have been every part of the Marine Corps, I say, all 3 legs of the stool. So aviation, combat logistics, and infantry. So ground combat element, GCE, ACE, aviation combat element, and LCE, logistics combat element. I've got a chance to be in all 3 legs of the stool, which is pretty rare for a Marine. And I've done accessions, which is what I'm doing now, recruiting, and I've done basic training. I was a drill instructor training new Marines for a while. I also did basic training for officers. I was an officer candidate instructor for some time. I worked at a university training a college level ROTC group for some time. And I've been terribly
over.
fortunate. Yeah.
That's amazing. What was your original career?
So when I first joined the Marine Corps, I was a mechanic on a helicopter. That's what I started out as. After that, I had a chance to become a crew chief, which the best way I can describe it is a flying mechanic. It's different in every service, what their roles and responsibilities are, but I was a helicopter, specifically a CH-46 crew chief, which that helicopter is now retired from the Marine Corps and no longer in service. It was replaced by the Osprey, the V-22 tilt rotor aircraft Osprey. I had a chance to fly around with the president for a while. I served as a Marine One crew chief, so I flew around with President Clinton and President Bush 43. And from there, I did a myriad of jobs, and both in infantry and logistics, and a drill instructor, and back to the CH-46 as a crew chief again. Did security for some generals in Afghanistan. I've done all kinds of random things.
Was it your desire to change careers that much and move around that much, or that the Marines just did that for you?
So you asked earlier about advice or thoughts. I call it a spring butt. And anytime someone has said, I need a volunteer for, I didn't even listen to the rest of the question, I raised my hand. Sometimes I had to clean porta-johns, and sometimes I got to go to Iwo Jima, to see where the Mount Suribachi, where the Marines raise the flag.
Right.
And everything in between. So much of my opportunities as a Marine have come from me saying, yes, I would like to volunteer for whatever you're asking. Sometimes I knew and sometimes I didn't. And in other times, because of I don't discount my lack of effort or desire or abilities, but I do attribute a great deal of fortune and luck to all the things that have happened to me. I say it every morning when I wake up. What's going to happen today? Because I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm the luckiest guy you're going to meet today, and I feel that way every single day of my life. Here's my common spiel to the poolies if I have a chance to stand in front of them. I said, I have been to every continent on this earth except for Antarctica. I've been to every state in this country except for North Dakota. But who goes to North Dakota? I've shaken hands with 5 U.S. presidents. I've met, I don't know how many congressmen, senators, wonderful leaders of our country here, mayors and governors, and of other nations as well. I have fought in combat. I have saved lives. I have done humanitarian missions. I have seen the worst humanity has to offer, and I've seen the best humanity has to offer. And I have a wonderful lady who loves me back for some random reason, and I'm the luckiest guy you're going to meet today.
That's amazing. And I love that you bring that up too, because there is a really old stigma of just don't volunteer. Have you not heard that?
Absolutely.
I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. And because you know that I work with new recruits from the Air Guard. And a lot of times I'll be talking to them and they'll say, oh, I was talking to so-and-so in my unit and they told me, just keep your head low, don't volunteer for anything. And every single time I hear it, it just frustrates me, because to me, I feel like what they're saying is settle for mediocrity every time they say don't volunteer. Just get by, settle for mediocrity, just be fine with mediocrity. And it irritates me, especially with these new recruits, because they've got so much energy and they're so excitement.
Yes.
They've got so much excitement.
Yes.
They're just ready for their military career and what it could possibly offer them.
Yes.
And not volunteering is like, let's start you off with mediocrity.
I've tried to understand this process because I've watched it happen. I know it shouldn't happen, and it happened to me. I can't say that I've been a volunteer all of my career. There have been times, and I tell you, nobody wants to be the new guy, and I'll explain my reasoning for that. So when we send a young man or woman to recruit training and they come back here just fresh out of recruit training, they are motivated beyond motivated. Like, I am a Marine and I get to wear this uniform for the first time, and I get to have my ID card for the first time, and I call myself a Marine, and that is an extremely proud moment. So they're here for 10 days, and then they've been a recruit for roughly 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and then we put them on a week of Marine Week at the end of recruit training, 4th phase we call it now. So they get go around base on kind of on their own and do some things as a junior Marine might. So recruit training has changed in that way, and that's a positive thing in my opinion. Very, very positive thing. So when they come back here for 10 days, they help out the recruiters on occasion, or they come back home for 10 days, they hang out with mom and dad and friends and things like that, but they're a Marine finally, and it's a very proud moment. And then we send them to either Marine combat training, or we send them to the School of Infantry, depending on what job they're going to have as a Marine. And then somewhere in that transition is where that attitude you're talking about comes back, because nobody wants to be the new guy. Nobody wants to be the freshman in high school again. Nobody wants to be the new guy on the football team and be looked at as the new guy again, or that kind of thing. And that mentality of guys. So if I stand over here and I act like I know what I'm doing, and I don't act like the motivated person that is truly inside of me, then I may not get noticed, or I may not be shunned for my newness, if that makes sense. So I think many young folks are guilty of that, and I promise I was. I was a product of it. So I remember being shunned by my peers as a young Marine. Lance Corporal was my rank, so E3, and they said I was too motivated. They said,
Is
Brad,
that a thing?
Yeah, they said, you're too motivated. I said, what do you mean? Like, oh, you're like a recruit, retarded motivated, kind of just being silly, kind of the way they talked about things, and just young men being nagging each other on. So after a while, that really builds on you, and you think, well, I'm going to go along to get along, kind of idea. And I'll tell you a quick story where this come back to bite me. So fast forward a couple years, I was a corporal, a non-commissioned officer. So that's the first opportunity as an enlisted Marine to be in charge of things. So E4, we finally get the red stripe on our trousers, so we call it the blood stripe, and it's to symbolize the blood loss at the Battle of Chapultepec, where 90% of the Marine officers and Marine NCOs, non-commissioned officers, lost their lives. So only NCOs and officers wear the blood stripe, non-NCOs do not. So E4 is the first opportunity as a Marine where you have a chance. You get a sword, like you get to be an NCO, and you get to carry an NCO sword and have a blood stripe. So I went to NCO school, or a corporal's course, and I was the honor graduate and the gung-ho, so the most motivated individual recipient for that class. And I came back to my unit, and I was all fired up, and I got shunned by my peers again over the course of 3 or 4 months. And I let myself go, and I stopped physical training like I had. I stopped studying knowledge like I had, and I just kind of succumbed to the peer pressure of my peers and of being too motivated. And I finally, it all came to a head when I was selected to go up on a meritorious promotion board. And I performed, it was an abysmal effort, because I had not done anything in a few months, and my physical fitness had gone down. My uniforms didn't fit properly anymore because I gained some weight. A number of other issues came about, and at the end of the day, obviously I didn't win, and my then Sergeant Major called me in his office and said, what the fuck happened to you, is what he said. And I broke down. Like I said, he said, the Marine that I saw today is not the Marine that I watched walk across the stage a few months ago at Corporal's Course graduation. Because when you walked across that stage, I leaned to my partner and said, he's going to be the next meritorious promotion to sergeant. And what I saw today was not that Marine. What happened to you? And I realized at that moment, I said, I am not today the Marine that I set out to be, and I'm not the Marine that I wanted to wake up and be this morning. And I promise you that'll never happen again. And it's not. I've looked at myself every morning in the mirror when I shave my face and brush my teeth. I said, are you going to be the Marine you set out to be today? And at the end of the night when I brush my teeth and I go back to bed, I said, were you the Marine that you set out to be today? And I contemplate that. Do I win every day? Absolutely no. Do I win most days? Yes. So that's my daily ritual.
It's such a great story. And I think mostly because it's so relatable.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about too. I think I was really lucky though, because my first NCOIC really knew how to cultivate and work with my energy and my optimism. and because he's been that way his whole career. I had him on the podcast as well.
Nice.
John Salzar, he's amazing. And so I think that really helped a lot, but I was always pushing buttons that people were like, leave it alone, Lynn, it's okay the way it is. We've done it this way for so long. And I'm like, but the TO says, like,
yes.
And so I was always pushing, and they're like, don't worry, the animation's gonna run out. But I mean, it hasn't.
Yeah,
but there was a time that I was thinking that I was just not a good fit in the military, because I felt like I was swimming upstream a little bit too much. And it was a leadership course that changed things for me and really gave me the tools that I needed and connected me to the right kind of people, so that I could see beyond my shop. But
it's gone. I talked about this a few months ago. I thought it for a long time. I heard it for a long time. Show me your 5 closest friends, and I can tell you what kind of person you are. And I use that in this world where surround yourself with, never be the smartest person in the room, never be the most eloquent or best spoken person in a room, never be, like, always challenge yourself and always be around people who are better than you, because it's going to make you better.
Right.
If you're happy with status quo, like you say, or just happy with the way things are, then you are pond water, and pond water goes very stagnant and gets very nasty. So don't be pond water.
Right. It's really why I think I felt so passionate about creating the podcast and giving back to Rising Ranks, because I want to maybe help them understand exactly your story of, you know, how unfulfilling it is to be in that spot when you're just giving in to the pressures of the people that are nearest you, instead of doing what you truly want to do. And I do believe that people have at the heart a desire to be great.
Yes, I agree, 100%. There's something to be said about the rank that I'm at now, and I've often looked at Marines who are at the level of Sergeant Major or Master Gunnery Sergeant and think, that guy just says what's on his mind all the time. And I realize now that I'm at that rank, I can't get promoted anymore. I don't really have to. I mean, I do worry about perception and things like that, because the office that I hold and the rank that I hold means a lot to me. There's only a little over 500 of me in the entire Marine Corps, so it's not many. But I'm not that guy. Every time somebody says Sergeant Major, I still look behind me to see who they're talking to, because I don't feel like I'm that guy anymore. But at the same time, I am a Sergeant Major, and I'm extremely proud that I've had a chance to achieve that rank. And I do hold it in high regard, but at the same time, my job is to be a servant leader and serve those I lead. I'm not in charge of these Marines here. I work for them. I'm their voice. I'm their advocate. I'm their opportunity to talk to the commander. I'm their direct link to any higher headquarters or things like that. So that's my job. They don't work for me. I work for them. And that's the way I look at my current role.
So let me ask you, what do you think was most important for you to get to the rank that you are now in navigating your career? What skill set or character trait of yours was the most impactful for you?
Don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. And I don't know of a service or a job that doesn't have a roadmap of sorts that says every rank is required to have this school done or this course done or this thing. I find myself at certain times having to tell Marines, you have to go to school or you have to complete this course. Nobody's ever had to tell me that I have to go to something because it was already completed. So as soon as I had an opportunity to go to corporal's course, I was signed up for it. As soon as I had an opportunity to go to sergeant's course and career course and advanced course and take all the online things that I could take, I'm already signed up for it. As soon as I have an opportunity to. I can't get a perfect score on the physical fitness test. I never have in my career. I've been very close a few times, but I've never had a perfect score. But I've always tried to have a little bit better than the average physical fitness test score. I've always had to have a little bit better rifle or pistol score than the average. I've always tried to have a little bit better than the average across the spectrum. And take some online courses. If I know that I'm deficient in an area like writing or speaking or whatever the thing is, I try to better myself in that area. So I don't wait for somebody to say, you need to fix this thing, unless I have a blind spot, which we all have blind spots. But I've tried to better myself. That's daily betterment of my abilities and betterment of my personal and professional growth has been recognized throughout the career, and my annual reports say the same thing, and my promotions rapid ascent through the ranks say that same thing too. So,
did you want to be a drill instructor? Is that something you sought after, or is it something that the Marines told you you're going to be a drill instructor?
I sought that, as many Marines do, because you look at that as the epitome of a Marine, the Marine drill instructor with the campaign cover and the I don't know the word that I could use for it, that you are in charge, like you are the trainer, you make Marines, so to speak. And when you see that from a recruit's perspective, you think, wow, this person is amazing. And you say, I would like the opportunity to go be that. And when I was a recruit at Parris Island, I remember going across one of the roads one day, and I looking around the area, shouldn't have been, but I looked around the area, and there was a sign up there that says, we make Marines, and then another one near it said, the change is forever. And earning the title Marine, it's something that's a lifelong thing. I am a Marine. I'm either active duty or I'm retired, or I'm prior, not retired, but prior service Marine, or I'm previously active duty, but I'll always carry that title. And the change is forever, and I fully support that, but boot camp doesn't change who you are. Boot camp gives you some tools to be a better person and better fit. It challenges you to open up some avenues that you may not previously thought possible. But it doesn't change who you are unless you truly want to change. Like, I have to embrace this, I have to want this in order for that change to happen. I can leave boot camp and go back to being the same person I was the day I walked on walked aboard. So that change is forever, and that I wanted to help be a part of that. After serving as a drill instructor and rising through the ranks as a drill instructor up to the series chief instructor, my attitude towards it changed a bit, and then I worked training officers, and my attitude changed more towards it a bit, and then particularly in this role, my attitude has changed even more. And I think back to my career personally. So who made me a Marine? And I really think my recruiter did. And I say that because I spent almost 2 years with this guy before I stepped foot on the depot and went through basic training. So the culture of the Marine Corps and the taking care of another Marine and the communication I had with him and the interaction I had with him and the care and the desire he put towards me and everybody else in the pool, and the respect he showed my family and the communication he had with my family, that set the tone for me for the rest of the trajectory for the rest of my career. So, did my drill instructors make me a Marine? Absolutely. They put me through the paces of being a recruit, to go through the basic process to understand that I had the basic template to be a Marine. But the culture of the Marine Corps was built in that recruiting office. I learned, the basics of being a Marine, how to shoot and how to swim and do all those things came in recruit training. But I still look at it today as the recruiters start the process, and it's all a big process. It's like filtering sand. You start with the big rocks and smaller rocks until you get to sand, and you can filter water through that. So the recruiters are the big rocks at the top. They filter out a lot of the riffraff. The drill instructors are the next level of rocks, and then throughout the first 4 years, that first enlistment is your filtering process, and typically only the Marines that should stay through there are allowed to go through that process. So it's all a filtering and evaluation process. So that first 4 years, first contract to me is a basic training, is an on-ramp to the Marine Corps. If you stay past that first 4 years, that's where you become a professional Marine.
It's interesting you say that, because I've met a lot of Marines that are only in for 4.
We as a recruiting command this past year put in almost 37,000 new Marines.
Wow.
And the Marine Corps is only 186,000 total. And that's almost every year. 37,000 Marines every year will graduate and earn the title, and the same number depart. So it seems like a very high turnover rate.
Yeah.
And I try to think of a civilian organization, is there a civilian organization that could withstand that amount of turnover? But we need junior Marines. I mean, many service members in general, regardless of the service, desire to come in and just do 4 years and have the experience and move on about their life, and that's great. I had no desire or intent to stay past 4 years. That was not even on my plate. It's just the end of my first enlistment. I had an opportunity to go serve as a drill instructor, and I said, man, I'll re-enlist, and I did. And then they said, you can go to Okinawa, Japan, and do this thing, and I said, okay, I'll re-enlist again. And I've done it a couple more times since then, but I never intended to be around this long. And I've talked to many Marines who just said, I just want to come in and be a machine gunner for 4 years and then go to school and then become a whatever. And that's their plan. But the same thing exists in every service. I think our turnover rate's just pretty high. The Navy is almost double our size, and they recruit about the same number every year. So their turnover percentage is much lower.
Yeah.
I think more people join the Air Force and the Navy as a career than the Marine Corps.
Right. And some people it's physically very demanding.
Yes.
From what I understand,
Sure.
at least, it's the most physically demanding of the branches.
I don't know that.
I guess it depends on what career you go.
It depends on the
into.
MOS for sure.
Right. But
We have the
in
highest.
general, like in the Air Force, you have to be able to pass the PT test once you're in basic training, but not before you go, unless you have a tactical career field.
Sure.
But
We've changed that too. So some of our combat arms MOSs are required to do more before they go to boot camp.
Yeah.
That's part of the discussion I had in here this morning earlier today was this person signed up as a combat arms job and they can't do the prerequisite pull-ups and ammo can lifts to do that job right now. So I have to delay them going to boot camp until they're able to do that.
Making sure that they get the support that they need.
Yes.
So that they can handle the stressors.
Yes.
Right. When you were a drill instructor, what kind of characteristics or skill sets did you look for in your new recruits?
It's very hard to. I'm going to answer that question the best way possible, in my opinion, but you don't see an individual and individual characteristics and individual traits as a recruit. You see them as a team. So, yes, they have to pass individually shooting, and yes, they have to pass individual tests, and yes, they have to pass individual swimming, but I look at them from my perspective as a drill instructor. I look at them as a team. How do they function in a team environment? Are they selfish? Do they help each other out? Do they, if they're done with their thing, are they ready to help another? So being a good teammate is probably, that's not an individual characteristic. But I look as a whole group, because if some of them are not helping the other ones out, then the whole team fails. So it's a big team dynamic, and it's because we are such individuals as civilians most of the time. We are on our own program, and we are on our own thing, and we do our own thing, and nobody's on the same team as us except for maybe our family or our closest friends. But in that environment, everybody's on the same team, and everybody's responsible for everybody else.
And it can be really difficult too, because these are people you've never met before,
Yes.
and it's a random sampling of people from across the country. So
Absolutely.
You don't really know
From every walk of life.
Right, exactly. What kind of neighborhood or whatever that they've been from, and it's likely very different from yours.
It inevitably is.
Yeah.
Everybody has such a different experience.
And then to unite such a hodgepodge
Yes.
of people.
That is the most difficult and the most rewarding aspect of that job. to bring them together and put them in a same room together, and 3 months later they walk out of there as a team of with a shared camaraderie and shared hardship that is unlike anything else, and that is the most amazing thing to watch.
What do you think it is about it that really unites the group?
Shared hardship.
The shared hardship.
Because I look at every experience that I've had, which ones do I remember the most, and it's which ones had the most emotional connection tied to it. So the times that I was most scared, the times that I was most frightened, the times that I was most nervous, the times that I was happiest, the times that I was whatever had the most emotion attached to that thing, whoever was near me at that moment is who I cherish and remember most about that moment. So, promotion, like the day I got selected to promotion to Sergeant Major and I found out about it, my best friend called me. He said, "Man, you got selected to Sergeant Major." I said, I just hung the phone up. I thought he was joking with me. And he called me back. He said, "No, I'm serious. You got selected. I'm about to email you the roster." And the first phone call I made was to my grandfather. The second and third and fourth phone call were to some mentors that I had in the Marine Corps, and I just told them, "Thank you for teaching me the right way, guiding me down a path that led to this." But I remember that moment, and I remember the people that I called, and I remember the conversations that I had because it was such an emotional, big deal. And I remember the first deployment I was on. I remember the first time I was in harm's way or in bad guy country. I remember the first time I watched an IED go off, and I remember the first time I had to go provide first aid to somebody. And I like all these very emotional events, highly emotional, highly stressful events, if you will. That shared brotherhood or that shared camaraderie or that shared hardship at that moment is what I remember the most. And I think that is what makes Marines remember boot camp so vividly. And they remember their drill instructors because it was the hardest thing that they've done at that moment. Like, I talk to the poolies here about it all the time about the word stoicism. And I said, can you control when the drill instructor yells at you? No. Can you control when the drill instructor makes you go to the pit and do push-ups? No. Can you control anything like that? No. You can control your emotions and your reaction to it, though.
Yes.
So that is what you have under your control, and that's what you have to harness. But most people have never been yelled at before. Most people have never been confronted like that before. Most people have never been physically challenged like that before. Most people have never had to stand up at a position of attention for 8 hours a day before, whatever the thing is. All those physical and mental and emotional challenges, just not leaning on the wall. I mean, you see people, they cross their arms, lean on the wall. Just something as simple as that. You don't realize you do it until somebody just keeps pointing it out. And that's why people remember boot camp so much, is because it's tied to an emotional event. Because it's very personal, and they've never had anybody being that personal to them that they don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to agree. And I guess it really ties back into you talking about resilience, like how important, because you can go into that situation and, like you said, it's very personal.
Yes.
And if you take it to be degrading or my point being, it's really easy for people to go into a space of resentment with the military or irritation or frustration.
Yes.
And instead of leaning in and finding connections with the other people that are there, yes, realizing everybody's struggling together. It's it's a pretty common story that, your first night in basic and you're struggling and what did I do and I'm not sure about this, but then you hear somebody else whimpering or crying, or somebody that, and in my case there was a girl that actually quit the very first night.
Sure.
And so like those kind of things, you realize that everybody's struggling, but you don't necessarily, you have to find that space of being willing to connect with somebody else instead of going through it being like, I am a victim. It's like that victim mentality, like you really have to get over it.
And it happens to everybody. It happened to me in boot camp. I remember distinctly laying in my rack one night, looking out across, there was a bridge that I could see cars going across, and I remember laying there crying, thinking, what have I done? I've got 70, whatever, 60 more training days. I don't remember what it was, but I remember just thinking that, man, what have I done with myself? And I've thought the same thing on a ship. I've thought the same thing in combat. I've thought the same thing sitting at my desk right here. What am I doing? Why do I still want to do this?
But really, that's a sign you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone,
Yes.
which means you're doing something valuable, important, or at least, at the very minimum, interesting that's going to give you life experience.
I hope so.
Well, I mean, you're a walking billboard for that.
Yeah.
You've talked about a lot of the varied experience that you've had, which is incredible.
It blows me away. Really blows me away.
But I think that not only is it volunteering, but it's volunteering with a good attitude.
Sure. Optimism gets you a long way.
Yeah.
Cynicism, I mean, we all have it, and I find myself there sometimes. Fortunately, I have somebody that I can talk to every day, and somebody that I can ask the questions of. Blair and I talk every night, and we have a daily thing that we ask each other, and it's PIE, P-I-E, physically, intellectually, and emotionally. And I ask her, check in with me, and she says, physically, I'm tired because I worked 12-hour shift today. I had a hard workout this morning, my whatever sore from doing squats. Or physically, how am I doing physically? I haven't slept good in the last few days, so I'm kind of drained of energy, or my food wasn't the best choices today, or whatever the things are physically. And then intellectually, what have I learned today, and how have I challenged myself today, and what have I taught somebody else today, or anything intellectually. So she was going through her master's program as a nurse practitioner, and every day she would teach me something that she learned or she had done at the hospital or things like that, and I try to do the same here with her. So that forces me to daily learn something, or daily read something, or daily engage my brain in something, because I know tonight she's going to ask me that. And then emotionally, how am I doing emotionally? So she lives in South Carolina at the moment. I'm here in Utah, so I don't see her but every few weeks, and I'll see her full time in September. But that's emotionally difficult. Like I miss her, and I miss my family, and I miss whatever. And being a sergeant major, who do I have? I don't have a peer here. Like I have my closest peers in Denver, Colorado, or San Diego, California, or somewhere else. So finding my friendships here is kind of odd, because I can't be friends with my subordinate Marines. I can't be friends with the commanding officer. So I'm kind of at the lone man at the top. The only position is the top is an emotional difficulty. So I find friends outside of work that are not related to the military, and but I check in with her emotionally every day as well. So I felt very much love for you today, or I felt very frustrated today, but we both do that every night. And throughout the day, I have to think about what's my answer going to be tonight. And if I've not done something that day to stimulate one of those three, then I'd do it.
That's great.
It's been wonderful. I don't know that I answered your question, but
I don't even remember where I was. I was so interested in what you were saying. I think that's really great though. Oh, okay. So you're saying that really gives you, no, that's a really important point, because what I'm hearing is that you're making sure that you have the support and what you need in order to show up the way that you want to show up in the world. Which is, and going back to what you were saying about the people that are closest to you, like knowing that you have that kind of support.
It's huge.
Right. And if you don't, and for any listeners or people that don't have that support, like you have to find it.
You do, and you have to go seek it. Go meet a stranger. Like I ride public transportation here as often as I can, and I try to meet somebody new. And it's easier for me to meet new people in uniform, because people are much more apt to talk to you in uniform than they are not. But I still say hello and greet people every day. And I live full time right now in an RV, and people question that when I talk about it all the time. But I've lived in an RV personally. Lived in an RV for almost 5 years, I guess.
Wow.
I've lived in California in one, and here in Louisiana. and I wish I had done it many years before. And I say that because the RV park I live in here is the Campgrounds of America, and it's transient. So I always, every few days or every few weeks, I have a new person across the street from me or beside me, and I meet them, and because everybody's outside and enjoying life, and it's such a wonderful community. So I meet a lot of people that way too. And then I'm perpetually in motion as much as I can be, and I travel as much as I can, and I constantly seek new things and new people, and it's exhausting for me to have to be the sergeant major all the time and do that kind of thing. So I recharge my batteries quietly every day by reading or contemplating or writing something on my own. But it's really nice to go out and meet good humans and be around great people. So, and they're everywhere. You just got to ask, hey, how you doing?
All right.
Tell me about your pet.
Conversation. Tell me about your pet.
Yeah.
It is a great question because people who have pets definitely will talk passionately about it. So how have you dealt, this might lead into what you were already saying, but how have you dealt with stress in your career?
Physical fitness is probably one of the bigger ways. Physical activity, getting nervous energy out. Learning how to communicate has been the number one way, but it took me a long time to figure that out. I am a totally different communicator today than I was 10 years ago, and way different than I was as a young man 20 years ago. But I think males at 30-ish, plus or minus 5 years, that is part of the hardest time for us, and it was for me. And I see the same thing over and over again in the Marines that I have under my charge now, and because I think that's when you grow up finally. You realize who you are and what your capabilities are, and sometimes that fits in the world that you started, and sometimes that doesn't fit in the world that you started. Maybe with your family or with a spouse or with kids or with being a dad or being a Marine or being the job that you're in. And that transition period is really difficult. So I was married before to a wonderful lady named Katie. And my communication day is much better because of my learning communication with her and through that relationship, and both being deployed. She was active duty Army and I was active duty Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
And it was 12 years of marriage. We only spent 5 years in the same house. So
wow.
Difficult is not even a good word for it. But we both learned good resiliency, and we're both in relationships now that we're better for that, and we're still great friends and still have our families are still all connected and all the other things too. So it's really unique and fun in that sense. But we both learned how to communicate long distance. We both learned how to communicate together, and sometimes that worked and sometimes that didn't. But we grew into different people because we were separated so much. And I think relationships in the military are hard, particularly when the deployments are involved and separation is involved, and that's part of that resiliency thing. But we both changed and grew up, and like I said, I'm a much better person and a much better communicator today. So learning how to deal with stress. So I have been diagnosed with PTSD. I'm not afraid to talk about that, and I talk about it often. Don't be afraid to go see a therapist. Don't be afraid to go ask for help. I'm drowning over here. Please throw me a lifeline. I go to a therapist every other week, and I sit and talk. And sometimes it's about combat. Sometimes it's about losing a friend. Sometimes it's about my job here, and sometimes it's about me growing up. It's all this stuff's compounded. So find someone that you can talk to that doesn't pass judgment, or that we all need that person to talk to. And most males don't talk, and I think that's it's a flaw in our psyche. But I see it day after day after day. Go talk to somebody. Go engage in conversation. Go ask for help. And we all go through stress. There's not a point in my career. There's not a rank in my career. There's not a duty station in my career where I haven't gone through stress and I didn't want to deal with it. But I went and asked for help. I'm stressed out right now and I don't know how to handle this. And I'll tell your listeners and you something that happened to me recently. I was doing great for months, and then all of a sudden I started getting nervous in crowds again, and I started getting nervous in traffic again. I started wanting to know where my gun was all the time, and I started feeling stressed out at work, and all this, like, I don't know what the catalyst for that thing was. I still don't know. But I went to see my therapist, and I said, hey, I'm feeling stressed out right now. Everything's kind of bubbled up over the last few months, and I need your help and advice. And I'm very cognizant of it and very aware that this is happening to me because I don't feel good. I'm not sleeping as good. And everything compounded together. So I asked for help. I got help, and I'm good again. And I may never need help again, or I may need help again next week. But I know the signs and symptoms, and I will go ask for help. So if you are a young person out there, particularly a young service member, and you are in a place where you don't feel like you have an advocate, I promise you do. We all have an advocate. We all have a neighbor. We all have a roommate. We all have a family member, and you can call me. I don't care. You can look me up on the internet. Call me or send me an email. I'm happy to talk to you, help you out.
The military really is full of support that way.
Yes.
Nowadays.
Yes.
It's changed remarkably. It didn't always used to be that way, but now I think it's kind of built on the struggles of the ones that came before us.
Yes,
but now you can talk to the chaplain, you can talk to a counselor, you can talk, and they usually have that readily available.
A quick Google search can tell you 1,000 resources in seconds.
Right.
And you have many, many resources available to you. So Military One Source.
Right, Military One Source.
The chaplain, your command, chain of command, the VA, the de-stress line. There's plenty of phone numbers and people who are out there. There's a text. I can text help. I can't think of the number now. That's 711. Or there's a text line you can text help to, and somebody will text you back as well.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah.
That'd actually be really cool. But
I don't. It's been a while since I looked at that, and there's somebody. If you're depending on what you say, there's an algorithm built into that which sends it to the top of the list, and somebody will call you or get right on the text message right away.
That's really cool.
It's pretty neat.
I have to say that I really appreciate you talking about this, just because there is a stigma, and particularly around Marines, but when you talk about resiliency and how much you've talked about resiliency, I think there's a misconception that resiliency means you can do it all on your own.
Who? No,
it's just like
no way.
Your willingness and your capacity to bear all of it.
You can't. It's impossible. It
is impossible, and I think the truth of resiliency, and I think the military is getting into this more, because if you come forward and and say this is an issue, then usually there isn't the same type of repercussion as if the military has to come in and say this is an issue, and you're not addressing it.
I'll give you an example. So if a Marine walks into my office right now and says, I have an alcohol problem, I drink every single day, I would like help. I'm going to send them alcohol counseling, and it can be inpatient, it can be inpatient care depending on their level of need, or it can be go to a meeting once a week, or it can be whatever. But if I find that Marine got a DUI or drinking on the job or something like that, I'm still going to give them the help they need, but the disciplinary actions that come from that will definitely adversely affect your career. So post-traumatic stress, I don't think disorder is the good word for it, but PTS, post-traumatic stress, it's not a disorder, it's just it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I think most people experience it in their lives in some way. And it can be from a car accident, it can be from getting yelled at boot camp, it can be from getting shot at or getting blown up, or seeing a friend die, or seeing some serious horrific event, or watching a movie. I mean, who knows what it's going to come from. We all have I look at it like I got the calluses on my hand from years of picking up heavy things. But at some point in my life, I didn't have these calluses, and it was a blister, but that blister turned into a callus. But we all have a blister level somewhere for our level to handle stress. And over time, that ability gets more and more, but it never goes away. There's something that's going to stress me out in the next week that that I haven't experienced before, or the next month, or the next job. And I don't think it ever goes away. So many resources out there. Just don't
Right.
be afraid to ask for help.
And I think part of resiliency is really being able to self-diagnose or to self-evaluate
Yeah.
is a better word, and to be like, I've reached a point where I need help with this.
Yes.
This is my limit. I need support.
Yeah. I don't know how to stress that enough. I talk about it all the time, and I know that most commands talk about it, and it's suicide awareness or mental health is a big deal across the military right now. It's a big deal across the nation, college level and high school level, and suicide rates have drastically gone up, particularly in young ladies. Social media has a lot to do with that. Lack of communication. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that test, but it's very scary. Really scary.
Yeah. Personally, just my own thoughts. I think that it's the difficulty with connection, like we were talking about before.
Yes.
I think when you're disconnected, it becomes really easy to think all sorts of things that are not helpful.
100%. Yes. I look at experiences, and I like we talked about shared experiences or shared hardships earlier, and I'm going to talk about a really cool thing. I remember the first time I walked to the edge of the Grand Canyon. And it's a big hole in the ground, yes. But it's a beautiful big hole in the ground.
Sure.
And experiencing that by myself would have been one thing, but the person I got to stand beside and hold the hand of made that moment so much more special. So always share things with someone. Don't be afraid to be different and be weird, I say, and do different things and share things with other people. I look to do something unique all the time. So if that's go do Bikram yoga with a new group, or that's go do Pilates with a group, or that's go do meditation on the beach, or that's go something like I'm go take a cooking class, go axe throwing, or go whatever. Like I don't like traditional dates. I never really have. Like a dinner and a movie is not my favorite type of date. I want to go do something unique. I want to go do something like we're going to go feed the homeless, or we're going to go adopt a pet, work at adopted pets, or wash dogs, or pick up roadside trash, or something random. That's the kind of dates I've tried to go on always, because it's something unique, and I get to share it with someone else that I've not met before.
It's so great. I think it just becomes so easy with technology and everything.
Yes.
You just get into your own little routine or your own little world, and you don't do something that somebody else would consider totally random or even bizarre.
Yes.
And I tried fencing a
wonderful.
while back, and it was so much fun.
Yes.
I was kind of sad that it took me so long to try it, because I had wanted to try it for a long time.
That's fantastic.
What would you consider your greatest military accomplishment or your most meaningful military experience, and why?
Greatest accomplishment, I would think, is helping or inspiring somebody. And I don't know who that somebody is. I randomly get a text message, or randomly get an email, or randomly get a Facebook message, or some form of communication from someone that I saw 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 5 years ago, or last week. It says, thanks for saying the thing, or thanks for doing the thing. You really helped me out. And I've done that for many people too. So that every single time I feel that's the best thing in the world that I've ever done. To inspire someone else to be better, or have a better day, or just whatever the thing is. So I don't really know that there's a single greatest accomplishment. That's happened a few times, and I love those phone calls, and I love those emails, and I love those opportunities. Your second part of your question was
Why? Or the most meaningful. But
most meaningful. I guess they're kind of both the same thing. So
yeah, I think you answered it.
Yeah, just being able to make a difference in someone's life. That is my best feeling.
Are there any books or documentaries or historical figures that have been influential to you in your life or your career?
You see my...
I did notice that you had a little book collection over there.
I got rid of quite a few. So I try to steal something from everybody, and I use that metaphorically. So there's something I'm going to talk to the commander about throughout the course of our relationship that I think, I'm going to put that in my use later book. Or I steal something from everybody, and I steal something from every book. So I can't really say that there's a single standout person or a single standout. There's a number of standout people, but they all revolve around a couple of things. Be a good human. Give your best effort in all the things that you do. Never stop learning, and don't stop having fun. Live in the moment, kind of thing. Enjoy where you are right now, because don't look forward to tomorrow always. Enjoy it now, because it's a pretty cool thing that's happening to you.
What habits have you learned from the military that you still use or that are important to you in your life?
There's an admiral who made a speech at college some years back. He wrote a book about make your bed every day.
Mm-hmm. I've read that one.
The speech went viral, and his book is going really great. And there are very few days, and have been very few days, where I don't make my bed every morning. And it's just a habit it forces me to tidy up all the things in my life. Like if you come to my house right now, it looks neat in appearance. I don't have stuff just laying around. I never like that. When it makes me like I wash my dishes as soon as I'm done with them. I put them away. It's just keeping order, I guess, somewhat order in my life, because the chaos that is it doesn't make me. I'm not able to think clearly, because I'm so distracted by all the other things. So that's one habit. Maintaining physical fitness. I think it helps me maintain my mental state as well. And I feel good. Like I feel good about who I am. I feel good about what I look like. I feel good physically. I feel good emotionally. I know I have a broken Achilles tendon at the moment. Well, healing Achilles tendon. I just had it repaired again. But that resiliency in both emotionally and physically is something difficult sometimes. So those habits, just overcoming adversity that I wouldn't have faced otherwise.
I love that you brought up that order helps you balance out the other aspects,
Control what you can.
Yeah, I think people get a little frustrated with basic how much time they spend on how perfect your bed has to be, or your locker, how perfect of order it needs to be, and the spacing between the hangers, and I think that a big piece of that really is understanding that the basics of whatever you're doing have to be in order so that you can deal with whatever comes your way for the mission.
Here's an analogy I always use. Why do we always, for an infantry unit, for example, why do I make all of you put your first aid kit in this pouch on the back of your pack? Because when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and it's completely dark outside and you can't see and you need to know where the tourniquet is, it's the same on everybody's pack. So there's no question about where that thing is. So that order and discipline provides calmness and provides guidance and chaos, what is otherwise chaos.
Exactly. That's
why we do repetitive things. That's why we shoot so much and we do the things over and over and over again and try, because there's a wonderful saying, the enemy always gets a vote, and the enemy can be weather and time and equipment and actual enemy, but the enemy always gets a vote. And all good plans go out the window as soon as the first shot's fired, kind of thing, but the enemy always has a vote. And the more things you can control, stoicism, how you react to the situation, because I know where my first aid kit is. I know what to do when that thing happens, and I know where my buddy's going to be because we practiced this 1,000 times. So the more order I can bring to chaos, the easier things are. That's the purpose of all that.
So you've brought up stoicism a couple of times. Is that something that the Marines have been talking about as a branch, or is that something that you've gotten from your personal
It's a personal thing for me.
studies?
I
Okay.
hear other people talk about it.
Because I know the Army has integrated a certain amount of stoicism.
I truly believe in being a philosopher of the business. So my business right now is leadership. My business right now is the sessions. My business right now is teaching and mentoring Marines. So the more I can learn and be better at that profession of my profession, so to speak. But that's one thing that I constantly see is my reaction to the situation is the only thing I can control truly. So I learned that brings me calmness and brings me comfort.
Right. Because it's just out of control to worry about something that
Sure.
you can't
Sure.
do anything about.
Yeah, that's part of that stress. Like learning,
Yes.
just learning that basic thing. Like I read something yesterday. I don't remember. I'm going to paraphrase this, but we often feel handicapped or disabled because of things we're born with or born without. And Usain Bolt was born with the ability to run super fast. I can't run that fast. That doesn't limit me and who I am as a human or doing the other things that I want to do. I just can't run as fast as him. That doesn't mean I'm inferior. So don't be a victim. You said being a victim earlier, and this is an opportunity. Like I'm not a victim. This is an opportunity to get better. There's all those. A door closes here. There's opportunity for another door opening or another experience. So.
Right. Exactly. If you could give new enlistees one superpower to help them in their career and the future of the military, what would it be?
What did I say earlier? Superpower. Don't be afraid to volunteer, but be a good human, be a good person, and be genuine, and don't be afraid to be who you are. I know there's a word in the military we call uniform, and that's because everybody looks the same, acts the same, walks the same, has the same step.
Right.
But you still got to be who you are, and you're still going to be who you are. The military, just because you put a uniform on, doesn't change who you are intrinsically. So don't be afraid to be who you are. I guess that's one of the hardest things to overcome is being who you are, being true to you.
It's ironic that can be such a struggle.
Yes.
I think that's a really beautiful superpower, because truly if people could just naturally be more of who they intrinsically are, it not only would be a different military, but it would be a different world.
Yeah. We have to have a uniform, and we have to act a certain way and be a certain way and be fit and be whatever the things are that come about being a member of the armed forces. But because our taxpayers demand that, like we demand that our military be able to have certain capabilities. So either you fit in that window or you don't. But still be who you are. Like if you there's the old saying that goes, if you knew you wouldn't be judged, what would you do different? I try to be that way regardless. So I live life without fear of judgment. I try to. It doesn't always happen, but I do.
I think the key is the fear of judgment, right? Because it's
most people don't judge.
Irregardless of whether it's going to happen or not, it's that fear that keeps it real, or that would keep somebody locked into a space of behaving the way they think is appropriate versus the way that they would truly wish to. And I really think that the only way out of that is to find the right support for yourself so that you can behave what's naturally for you.
I agree.
And then that just goes back to everything that you're already saying.
Absolutely.
How do you respond when people tell you thank you for your service?
You're worth it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I spent years trying to accept that. Like, I get paid on the 1st and 15th of every month. My paycheck is nice. I get compensated quite well for the effort that I put in. So when someone says thank you for your service, I used to say thanks for your support, or I appreciate it, or things like that. But I wanted to find a way that truly conveyed what I feel. I've continued to raise my right hand and swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, for an ideal. I call it the American Owner's Manual. I've got one right here in my desk drawer that I keep with me all the time, the Constitution and the Declaration. So that's what I call the American Owner's Manual. And not many Americans have ever read it. And not many Americans truly understand what's in it and what it took to get to that point that we have a free society that we have. And I don't think many Americans truly understand what it's like in the rest of the world until you've gone to the rest of the world. And I've seen most of the world, so I understand that more than most. So I don't fight for me. I never have fought for me. I do it for my family. I do it for the opportunity for my family. I do it for my community. And when I say you're worth it, it's because you are a member of my community, and you therefore are a member of my family, so you are worth it in every way possible. And I get teary-eyed thinking about this, but that's the only thing that conveys how I feel.
This is so beautiful. I've asked a number of people this question, but I think that's the best response I've heard.
It's unique from my view to watch how people respond to that when I say that. And I'll tell you something unique that happened to me here about a year ago. I was downtown Salt Lake. I'd been to a restaurant to eat lunch, and I left, and one of those rental bikes, Lime bike or whatever they're called, I'm not sure. There was a guy working on one of those on the platform, and it was me and a fellow Marine here, and he said, "Hey guys, thanks for your service." And I said, "You're worth it, buddy. Have a great day. Have an awesome day," or something like that. And he just kind of stopped, and we kept walking. We got down to the edge we turned a corner and down to the next stoplight and waiting for the traffic light to signal. I hear pitter patter of feet behind me, and I turn and I look, and this guy's coming, like running towards us with a bike. And he says, "Gentlemen," and he's got a beard and sunglasses on, and I see tears streaming down underneath his sunglasses. And he said, "Man, I got to shake your hand." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You said you're worth it back there, and in the last minute I've sit there and thought, I'm not worth it. And I promise you right now that I'm going to go be a better person today because of that conversation. So thanks." And that a similar thing has happened so many times, and it's such a wonderful connection. You know what I mean? You feel it right now, right? So I am honored to put this uniform on every day. I am honored to be a part of this. I can't look at you, sorry. I'm honored to be a part of this service, and I'm honored to be a part of this thing that we call America. And I'm truly blessed. Like I said, I'm the luckiest guy you're going to meet today.
Well, I think it's all summed up in what we've been talking about as far as the struggles with resiliency and the struggles with connection and people just not being recognized or recognizing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and to just tell somebody that they're worth all of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like that one-on-one of saying you're worth it. Like people just don't get told enough that they're valuable that way.
We are all on this earth going in the same direction. We get so many trips around the sun. Like, let's enjoy this together. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to war again. I don't want to shoot at anybody again. I don't want bad things to happen to anybody again. I wrote about it on my Instagram yesterday about love. Like, love is the most wonderful human emotion we can have. And I think we as a society are off too scared to share that, or too afraid to love each other and to be sharing that, because it's a scary world out there and you're not by yourself. So don't be afraid to show love and give love and ask for it.
It's a beautiful message. Is for people who want to follow you on Instagram, how do they find you?
My Instagram handle is 8999 driver, DRIVER. 8999 is my MOS number as a Sergeant Major. So that's where that comes from, if you're curious what that means. But 8999 driver. I post something every single day, and it's typically my random thoughts of the day, or just whatever's happening in my world. And I'm on Facebook also, but Instagram is probably the easiest, best way. But I got an open thing, and I always enjoy questions, or always enjoy helping others. That's my daily goal. So I'm a health coach and a physical fitness coach, and working my way to become a certified nutritionist and certified instructor in a lot of ways. But that's my goal, and that's what I want to do after I leave active duty services. Be a health coach, fitness coach, life coach, nutritionist kind of person, and help people feel better. That's my calling in life 100% of the way, and the Marine Corps has been a wonderful avenue for me to get to that point.
So for any listeners, what would you give them as a warrior challenge?
Find somebody who's worth it and tell them.
Yeah.
Meet a stranger, tell them they're worth it, or tell them you love them, or just random act of kindness to show love to somebody today. Please do that. Good.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your perspective, your experience, and just sharing your love and understanding. I really did not expect all of that today. I still have a little bit of preconceived notions about Marines,
Sure.
but it makes me so happy to know that there's people in high command or in higher ranks that have the kind of perspective and understanding that you have.
I'm not alone, I promise. There's many of me. So I'm honored to break myths
And misconceptions.
Yeah, misconceptions. Yeah. All right.
Thank you for
It's
being
been great.
on the
Thank you
show.
very much. I'm honored to be here.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found a new mindset to help you excel. For more information on Bradley Driver, please visit www.tamfpodcast.com/worth it.